Hi, welcome to my top 3 career pivot tips. With me today is Mel Ross. So first of all, Mel, thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show, Tim. I'm really excited.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited too, especially since a few weeks ago you interviewed me for a podcast, and today I get to interview you. So that's really fun for me. Um, just to sort of let the viewers know how we met. I believe the first time, well, I distinctly remember the first time I saw you, not met you, but saw you, you were a keynote speaker at the OD&E conference in 2017, Organizational Development Network Europe conference. It was in the London area, 2017, I think. You were a keynote speaker. Um, Anyway, at the time, I'm not sure how long your company had been in existence, but actually Mel is the founder of Adapt2Digital. And Adapt2Digital is really enabling leaders to operate and to thrive and to effectively function in this digital age, which is more important now than ever. It was already important in 2017, but it's even more important now. So by the way, Mel, how long had Adapt2Digital been around when you were the keynote back in 2017?
So I think actually I remember that it might have been the OD&E 5th year anniversary, and it was also our 5th year anniversary in business. So
Oh, was it? Okay, okay. And then actually, that was my first year. I had just been elected to the board, I think, and so that was my first conference as a member or a board member. Um, Anyway, so that was the first time I saw you. But then a few years later, I think it was in Amsterdam last year at the conference.
that's right.
Um,
I remember that.
we were actually in a small group together. There was a different keynote speaker, not you that time, but there was a different keynote speaker, and we were in our small group together, and we sort of really connected on a couple of ideas. And since then, we've sort of kept in touch. Like I said, you interviewed me for your podcast a few weeks ago, and we've written back and forth a little bit. Anyway, I'm really excited to introduce you to this audience. And again, the theme for our talk will really be, your top 3 career pivot tips. And I believe, well, I assume as a sort of mover and shaker like you are, you've had a couple of career pivots over the last few years, but I'm going to ask you to choose one today. And I'd say we just dive right in. So what would be your first tip for us today, Mel?
So and thanks for that, Tim. It's been really tough for me to really ground my thoughts on just one pivot. And I think because what I realized is when I looked at all of the key pivots that I've had through my career,
Mm-hmm.
there's commonality in them all as well as uniquenesses. And
Mm-hmm.
I kind of realized that it really grounds, there's 3 main themes
Mm-hmm.
around all of those pivots. So if you don't mind, I'm probably going to go off track a wee bit and just share the pivots, but I'm not going to go into detail, and then we
Okay.
can maybe there.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So my first main pivot was a personal pivot when I moved from the UK to New Zealand,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a genuine private personal motivation,
Mm-hmm.
an explorer and an adventurer. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that really enabled me to understand that having courage and taking yourself to the edge is
Mm.
something that isn't that frightening, and being at the edge is actually, they say fear and excitement are actually, 2 sides of the same emotion. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that really taught me something really important.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. And then moving on to that second pivot, when I was in New Zealand, I was very much a corporate bunny, as I will talk to you about my third
Okay.
pivot as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so pivot 2 and 3 are going from a corporate world into an entrepreneurial world.
Mm-hmm.
And in each one of those instances, pivot 2 and 3,
Mm-hmm.
moving from corporate world into the world of business ownership, startup and
Mm.
entrepreneurship, the things that were really important that helped me on that journey were twofold. Number one, without realizing it, just looking back on this exercise, I actually had a mentor or a coach. In one pivot, it was a formal mentor and coach, but in the other pivot, it was an informal mentor and coach. And I don't know whether I would have actually pivoted if I didn't have that support, that connection, and that network. So
is that a realization? Is that a realization you've come to now, that you might not have done that?
Without a doubt, without a doubt. It was literally just as I was thinking about these pivots. So that really was important to me. And the first mentor helped me in being prepared for what was ahead of me, and gave me, you know, tactical support and confidence. So it really, you know, so pivot one, courage and that sense of experimentation, and the next one is very much around that sense of being prepared through support. The other mentor, it was quite interesting. The other mentor really helped me with profile, in as much as giving me the confidence of knowing that I did have reputation, that I did have credibility, that I did have relevancy and value contribution that was worth not just sharing, but actually had financial value to people out there, to customers. So I think that
was that a different person? Was that a different person? Okay,
different person. So you know, I just think that was really interesting. So just that's knowing what your profile is, knowing what your genuine strength qualities are and what your value contribution is, because that gives you confidence. You know, I don't think it's just you've got a great product and therefore you can start a company. It's so much more about people as well, and the ethics around that. And then finally, and you and I were talking about this just before we came online, the most current pivot for us is shifting our existing business from a delivery model, which is quite traditional, to a delivery model which is you know, disruptive and innovative and modern in and of itself, community focused, platform focused, etc. And I think that pivot for me, which we're still going through, right? You know, we're still going through. I have really leaned into what I've learned in terms of my experimental practice, my preparedness, and leaning into my profile for confidence. But you know, something else has come out of that, which is being right for the present moment and genuinely being okay with what something is today. And if it's not, that's okay. You can continue, you know, you can deal with it, and you can move on from it and grow from it and learn from it and make something better, of higher quality, or just different tomorrow. So, and I know that's kind of leaning into your world of Gestalt a little bit. Just, you know, I cannot anymore underestimate the value you are pivoting of being in that present moment as authentically as you can, and being okay with it. And, you know, and that's really big.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I had this conversation with someone recently about COVID really has forced me, and I think forced all of us to really be in that present moment, even when, you know, you didn't want, because we didn't know what was coming the next day or the next week or the next month. We still kind of don't. We kind of feel like it's coming back under control, but we really don't know, right? But it really forced me to sort of, on a sort of an existential sort of survival level, ask myself, you know, are you okay today? Do you have enough today? You know, are you going to make it through today? You know, there was a point where I literally kind of had to ask myself that. And I think that's one of the beauties of Gestalt, is that focus on the here and now. And I sort of realized maybe I don't do this as well as I thought I did, but this kind of forced me to, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it brings in, you know, the being prepared as well comes into that a wee bit. I think one of the things that I'm learning is how, and there's loads of books out there, you know, the Morning Miracle, the 5 a.m. Club, and all of that. But one of the things that I have learned, you know, that is incredibly important for successful pivoting is being, you know, how do you start your day? Start from a place of strength, start from a place of positivity, because you are more likely to be able to recognize things, cope with things, make more effective decisions, etc., etc. So, you know, I think, you know, a little bit of that presence and being prepared also comes into how do you start your day.
I'm curious, did you have a routine before all of this? Did you have a routine where you started your day in a certain way before all of this happened, or have you developed that sort of during this uncertain time?
A really good question. To be fair, I would say I thought I did, but it was a wee bit mediocre.
Yeah.
It was making my cup of coffee in the morning. What's the stuff that I need to do today? And then 10 minutes later, I've checked my emails and I totally forgotten what I thought about when I was making my coffee. So totally mediocre. Whereas now I'm incredibly committed to how I start my day. Incredibly committed. And
You kind of have to be. You kind of, I mean, routine, I would say during the last few months, routine was our best friend, you know, and then creating a couple of systems, like you said, you know, a couple of systems that you do again and again, those really were sort of grounding things for me, I know, and for other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I want to come back. So sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, but I wanted to come back to something you said about the mentor. You mentioned two mentors, and you know, my question really is, for someone who doesn't have a mentor, who's never had a mentor. I think you and I would both agree that mentors or coaches or are so somebody sort of outside of yourself can really help you in lots of different ways. And you mentioned the second mentor about really helping you, giving you confidence and helping you sort of embrace your profile and sort of very empowering what he did with, or she, or I don't know, did with you. But you know, coming back to somebody who has never had a mentor or is thinking about a mentor or whatever, you know, what tip would you give somebody for choosing a mentor, finding a mentor? Do you have, I mean, how did you find your first one? Was it just by accident or?
Yeah, it was. You know, it was by it. Oh God, was it by accident? We came together as mentor mentee by accident, but I absolutely knew this lady, and you know, totally inspirational. And you know, initially I just went to her to ask her a few questions that were, you know, I need your advice, Julie. And and one thing led to another, and then all of a sudden there was regularity around it, and it became something that really was a relationship of mentor-mentee.
So it didn't start in an official way.
No. Whereas the second mentor was, I do think though that it's really important for anybody who is listening to our conversation now, Tim, to you know, without getting into the nth degree of detail and splitting hairs, to understand a little bit the difference between coaching and mentoring, because I think that mentoring was really important for me because I needed advice and I needed insight and I needed guidance when I was going through those two pivots.
Right.
Somebody might be going through a pivot and they might be quite clear and quite confident and competent about what they know and what they need to know and how to get hold of that.
Sure.
But what they want is they just want a little bit more of that conversational self-discovery and exploration. So I think, you know, it's just have a little bit of a, you know, without getting into, you know, without, excuse my French, getting your knickers in a twist, but just, you know, have a sense for, is it a coach, is it a mentor, is it a little bit of that I need? I think that's really important as a first point. And then the second point is once you've got a sense and a feeling for what you're after, then it becomes easier to find that person.
Okay. And I have a pretty recent realization, and I'm wondering, curious if you have a similar one, because you bring up the difference between coaching and mentoring, which you articulated very well. And what I have observed, well, let's say I come from a place where there was a clear distinction: coach, mentor. Mentor, more advice, direction. Coach, more sort of, could be challenging, but also, you know, asking questions and not giving solutions, and sort of trying to help people find their own way. And now, what I've seen in my own work, but also sort of out there, and people I've worked with, also people who've coached me, mentored me, it seems like that role has been blurred a little bit, and there's more of this hybrid coaches, this trusted advisor slash mentor slash coach. And what I've taken away from that, from the observation, but also from my experience, is when I'm coaching people, whereas let's say 5-10 years ago, I might not have given my opinion so quickly, or I might have given my opinion but really tried to be neutral about it. Whereas now, I still believe in the concept that, you know, somebody's got to come up with the idea themselves to really own it, and you know, be responsible for it. I believe that, but now I've gotten to the point where sometimes what I'm doing feels more of a sort of in that mentor, trusted advisor, sort of, not expert, but somebody who's experienced and has something strong to say about that. I don't know. Have you experienced the hybrid coach, or have you yourself made a transformation there?
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, and you know, everything that you've just said resonates with me. And you know, if you look at the work that we do in terms of helping leaders embrace the future and helping them develop the unique qualities of leading in a digital age, you have to be guide and offer insight, mentor, as well as coach them to self-discover what those qualities might look like and be for them in order for them to build development pathways. So without a doubt, I mean, you know, our practitioners, all of our practitioners call themselves mentor coaches.
Do they? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. So
Okay. You know what I just thought of, coming back to that, that small group activity where we sort of kind of officially met for the first time last year in Amsterdam. I remember not all of the details of the exercise we did. Maybe you can refresh my memory a little bit. But one thing I do remember is that there was part of that exercise we did where we did sort of start by asking questions, maybe, and sort of helping somebody, you know, tell a story and bring them out a bit. But there was at one point, one step in our little process where we like gave a very sort of strong or definitive hypothesis or something. Do you remember that?
Yeah, was that the bit where we went into pairs and there was something that we had to share and there was a feedback piece?
Possibly. I don't remember if we stayed in the group of 4, we were in pairs, but what I distinctly remember is being sort of surprised at how the keynote speaker had set up the exercise, so that step 3 was, unlike traditional coaching, step 3 was like making a strong hypothesis, you know? And it sort of was counterintuitive to the normal coaching process. I found. I don't know. Anyway, that just sort of struck me.
But I think, you know, I think what's really good, Tim, is that it means that you know, you've got the choice to go for what's right for you, which is kind of cool. And you know, if you've got the right, if you do engage with the right person, whether they're professionally engaging with you or informally because it's somebody that you know, it's you know, it's irrelevant. But you know, I think it's really good for you to know and have the choice. And my preferred would be hybrid always, because what that means is you're going on a journey.
Do you mean also, you know, if you're the coachee, do you also prefer to have a hybrid, somebody who like sort of tells you how they see it sometimes strongly?
I absolutely do, because sometimes it's really nice to have I didn't think about that, you know, and when you've, you know, you fixated with something in particular, that this is the right way to do it, because that's, you know, you only know what you know, and that's your frame of reference.
Right,
But
right.
somebody could come to a different frame of reference with some insight that stretches you, and you just think, gosh, there is a different way of thinking about this.
Yeah,
There is a
yeah,
different pathway here. And actually that is probably a better one than I had coming into the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, that's brilliant. My last question, Mel, is going to take you back to the sort of the first tip when you went to New Zealand. And funny, I didn't know you had been in New Zealand until we just, before this interview, we were talking about Crowded House and 4 seasons in one day. And
yeah.
so I do want to hear more about New Zealand, but taking you back to when you made that sort of first pivot or leap of faith, I guess, jumping out of your comfort zone or whatever. I don't know the details on exactly what you did and things other than you were in New Zealand. But I would imagine that it took a lot of courage to do what you did first, even though once you did it, you realized, oh, this was no big deal and I should have done it probably, you know, I don't know your thoughts at the time. But my question really is, you know, what tip would you give somebody who thinks it's a big deal and sees it as a huge blind leap of faith and things, you know, I mean, so what tip would you give to somebody who hadn't done something like that yet and was thinking about it?
However small or big, the lesson that I've learned is the hardest thing is commitment. And once you've actually internally, genuinely put commitment onto something, the rest of it is easy. You know, the planning, the things that you need to do, the steps and the actions that you take, they become so much easier. I think the hardest thing is actually genuinely committing, and then the doing it was that, you know, was easy, really.
The commitment. So isn't that interesting? You know, and it's often how it is even with decisions. Even like you said, it could be big or small, but often once you make a decision, things get a lot easier, don't they?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Well, that's great advice, Mel. Well, do you have any final words when it comes to the career pivot or your journey? I know we've just heard a part of your journey, but thank you for your inspirational tips. Any final sort of words for us?
I don't think so. I do. I mean, maybe just more of a summary, Tim. To be fair, I think that change is not something that should be fearful, and pivots as moments of change, human beings are very, very good at it. You know, over the decades, for some reason, there's been this big, you know, cloud of change. We're bad at it, and change, we're fearful of it. And actually, I don't think so. I think we're incredibly good at it. It's just about that moment. So I would say that. And then finally, just in terms of sharing those pivots with you through the conversation, is just that summary of those, without realizing it, the 4 Ps, which is, you know, that purpose, that profile, that presence, and that preparedness. Those 4 Ps they've been diamonds for me.
Sure.
When I've got pivots or large changes, they really have been important to me.
Well, thank you for that, Mel, and thanks for your time and energy today. And I look forward to hearing more about New Zealand and some of the other things, but I'm sure we'll continue our dialogue. But for today, I'll say thanks and wishing you a nice rest of the week. Yeah. So thanks for being here.
Thank you, Tim. Really, really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Tim.
All right, Mel. Take care.